Oh, thank goodness, he's fine. I knew that Balrog was no match for him. Oh, he's had his robe dry cleaned. Oh, hello. Several months ago, my sister Mary was overwhelmed by a bumper crop of Seminole pumpkins, and I generously offered to take some of them off her hands. Pumpkins are not only delicious, they're chock full of vitamins and minerals, and they have uses other than as food. They're sometimes used to fashion inexpensive lanterns, and up until medical advances of the 20th century, they were used as temporary prosthetic heads for victims of decollation. And they're grown on every continent on the planet, all except Antarctica, which means that, sadly, wild penguins will never know the joy that is pumpkin pie. And neither, you might think, will vegans, but you couldn't be more wrong. You see, knowing that I now had a plethora of pumpkins to get rid of, my sister provided me with a recipe to aid in their disposal. Yes, tonight we're making vegan pumpkin pie.
You'll need a pumpkin or a can of pumpkin puree. I used a Seminole pumpkin which I peeled, cut up, and stewed in a saucepan. You'll need 2 cups of it. You'll need 1 package of silken tofu. You'll need sugar, either white or brown. Optionally, you can also add a tablespoon of molasses. Spices to use include cinnamon, cloves, ginger, nutmeg, and allspice, which you can substitute for cloves. Nutmeg is almost essential. You will also need cornstarch, and you might need some non-dairy milk, such as soy, rice, or almond. Put all of the ingredients into the blender. I started with the 2 cups of pumpkin puree, 1 package of silken tofu, and 1 cup of white sugar. I used a spoon to mash up the tofu and mix everything a little bit. I then added a teaspoon of nutmeg, a teaspoon and a half of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ginger, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cloves. You can vary the spices according to your own taste, but this combination worked very well for me. You'll want to add about a tablespoon of cornstarch, and finally, optionally, you can choose to add about a tablespoon of bourbon or brandy. I used brandy. This enhances the flavor, adds a little bit of sweetness, and all but a trace amount of alcohol cooks out. Place the lid on the blender and blend until all of the ingredients are well mixed and smooth. This may take several minutes, and you might need to stop the blender periodically and use a spoon to stir from the top. You also might need to add some liquid at this point, which is where you would use the non-dairy milk. I didn't end up needing any, but my pumpkin puree was a little bit on the thin side. If you do end up needing to add some liquid, add only about a tablespoon at a time, just enough so that everything blends smoothly. Once the mixture is of a uniform consistency, pour it into a 9-inch pie shell. You can buy a pre-made pie shell or you can make your own, but that's another video. Bake the pie in a 350-degree oven for 45 minutes to an hour, or until a knife inserted an inch away from the center comes out clean. I had to test my pie a few times before it turned out to be done, but it did set without any problems. Once the pie is done, place it on a rack to cool. Once the pie has cooled to room temperature, slice and serve it in the normal fashion. The pie should keep very well covered in the refrigerator for up to a week. You may also choose to serve the pie with vegan whipped cream, but that too is another video.
You can't eat them like an apple at all. Well, I think that was even easier to make than regular pumpkin pie, and it was absolutely delicious. Tune in next time for information on something else.